good to go.
I see we have Dee Martolucci from Oceanside. She was part of the original badge pit crew.
Yay.
Nice.
Um, and John, you'll give me the thumbs up when you want me to start sharing the screen.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm just making sure that everything is right in the YouTube world before we get going, and I think we are all set. So we are going to, and Julie, I wasn't sure if you had a intro page or anything like that, so we made one as well just to kind of throw it in there. But we'll let you share your screen, and you can get started with that part. But for those of you that don't know, my name is John Smith, for real. I am one of the teacher success managers here at Book Creator. So lots of webinars, lots of conferences, things like that. But basically, my job is to make sure that teachers and schools and districts best utilize the licenses that they have, and they're using those in the classroom, right? And having a lot of fun with their students. And then at least on my screen, right down there below me is Randy. So Randy, would you tell us who you are and what you do at Book Creator?
Yes, so I am Randy Arndt, and I am the head of literacy and learning at Book Creator. I am located in Michigan in the Upper Peninsula. Previous to my role here, I've been a principal, an elementary teacher, literacy coach. And so when I heard about the amazing things happening in Oceanside, we had to make sure that we were sharing this with the world. So I'm extremely excited about today's webinar. And hopefully you will get some ideas, some insights, and then some more people to reach out to, right? Because sharing is caring in the education world. So without further ado, Julie, take it away.
Okay, first and foremost, John, you have disabled my sharing screen capabilities, so
Oh,
I'm a little
let's
limited.
let's fix that right now. Okay, there you go. You are now co-host. So now, Julie, you can share your screen.
Let's share a book creator that I made for this presentation. Um, hmm. Still seems disabled, John.
Let's see here.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, there we go. All right, good.
Things are happening.
All right. And as we go along with this webinar, if you do have questions or comments, aha moments, things like that, please put those into the chat window and we'll be happy to answer those questions for you.
Can you confirm that this is showing up?
Yep, absolutely. We got it.
All right, terrific. So I am Julie McGahan. I am principal in Oceanside Early Learning Center. I've been here for 13 years. Prior to that, I had 6 years of K through 5 building level principaling under my belt in Smithtown and Copiague, both here on Long Island in New York. And prior to that, I was a bilingual speech language therapist in a couple different districts around New York. So all told, about 19 years of principaling minus 1 year. I did take a year sabbatical to move my family to Costa Rica, which is the perfect segue for another thing that you should know about me. I do have a fairly significant amount of morbid curiosity and wanderlust. I travel quite a bit to places like Croatia. I saw Croatia in the chat bar. I've been to Morocco and heading to Tanzania soon. Austria, Switzerland. I've lived in Costa Rica. I've lived in all the different places. I love culture. I love people. I love getting to know people. And that probably has a lot to do with my passion professionally for seeking equity for our students and creating cultures of belonging and dignity for our staff and our parents as well. So one other thing that you should know about me is on the bottom left of the screen here, you're looking at a picture of my 2 children. That's Jackson and Lucy. In this picture, they were in 1st and 3rd grade. Lucy was in 1st grade, Jackson was in 3rd grade. They are now in 10th and 8th grade, but I chose this picture on purpose. It's partly because my son no longer lets me get great pictures of him. 15-year-olds are, fun to hang out with. But also there was actually an intentional reason. This was the age that they were when my husband and I started questioning the impact that traditional report cards were having on our children. We have 2 very unique children, not unique in the world. They're probably pretty normal kids, but They're very different from one another. Jackson is a incredibly bright kid. He is an incidental learner. He could be spinning on his head and he's just going to pick up all the things happening around him. So when he was in third grade, he got a report card that said all fours. We were using a scale of 1 to 4. He got all fours on his report card. And when I asked him to sit down and read or study for a test, he said, why would I read or study? I have all fours. I don't need to work anymore. This is a waste of my time, Mom. So we started questioning whether or not the traditional report card worked for a kid like Jackson, just in terms of work ethic and some of the life skills that we really wanted to grow for our children. And then Lucy is a very different learner. Lucy is a child who has struggled to learn how to read since she was young, has a great command of language verbally, but when it comes to literacy skills has really struggled, and she has put in all the effort because she loves anything that involves imagination. So she's always very drawn to books. The incentive and the motivation were there, but she absolutely couldn't crack the code on English until 8th grade. She's finally closing the gap in 8th grade. But for all the work that she put in, for all the extra help she went to, for all the extra support she got in school, Lucy would get report cards with 2s. And she would say, why am I bothering working this hard? I am just not smart enough. I just can't do it. We had her evaluated. She's got a great IQ. She's got all the intelligence, but those report cards meant more to her than anything else we could say about her intelligence. So for 2 completely different children, completely different learning styles, we as parents were struggling with whether or not the traditional report card was a good, powerful tool for us to use as a family in terms of growing the things that we wanted to grow, like work ethic and things like that. So, taking everything that I had learned as a parent, all the feedback I had gotten from parents in our school here in Oceanside, and working with an incredibly inspired group of educators, we called ourselves the Pit Crew, because before we dove into the work of trying to revolutionize our report cards, we studied NASCAR. And we also studied medical surgical teams from around the country who were starting to publish information about how surgical teams were studying NASCAR and the efficiency of NASCAR, where every member of a NASCAR pit crew has their own specific role and job and training, but that they work together in unison and time things out. And we were looking for a way to do some really important curriculum work to revolutionize our report cards. And we knew that we needed a bunch of different, very specific levels of expertise, all working in unison. So we called ourselves the Badge Pit Crew, and we took a pretty deep dive into a bunch of different literature. Among them are Grading for Equity, a absolutely phenomenal book, easy to read, teacher-friendly. We have read it here in Oceanside with our group of administrators, and we have also just gone in deep with our group of teachers in the building here. It has given us so much fodder for the kinds of things that we want to do in helping us prioritize. We've also been diving deep, as so many other districts are, into the work of belonging and dignity and equity for our students. And so we are leaning into Crown Apple and Floyd Cobb's book, and also Donna Hicks, who identifies ways that we can live with dignity and also ways that we can avoid violating people's dignity. So this is our inspiration. We also were fortunate enough to have doors open to us from our colleagues in Mineola, Long Island, who had started the work of looking at the curriculum through a very new revolutionary lens. And they created something that is very similar to what we ended up with. Theirs is a paper version and it's slightly different. So part of what I'll share today as we go through this a little bit is ultimately why we chose Book Creator as the vehicle that would give access and equity to parents, students, and teachers alike.
Julie, just to chime in really quick before we dive deep, I know that we have people from not only New York, but all over the country and world. And so, as the grading discussion is a hot topic right now. And so I can imagine that not just from a parent perspective, but also just speaking to some of the other educators around, like were some of the other red flags that you were seeing from your school? I know you shared your mom's story, but if you could just, what are some other things that you were seeing just as an educator?
Yeah, I'm so happy you brought that up, Randy, because in about one slide from now, I have a top 5 list. There is the top 5 countdown of why we need to revolutionize report cards, why we need to think differently about report cards. And it's literally just gathered from the literature that I just shared, but also from feedback. We have in my building about 650 children each year, and they're first-time parents. We have the little people in the building. And so we get a lot of parent partnership, a lot of parent anxiety, a lot of parent questions. And the top 5 list really is sort of the summary of the concerns. I'm going to fly through so we could get right to the top 5. Just wanted to give you a little look before we dive into the top 5 and we get into the nitty gritty of what we ended up creating with our badge books. This is what it looks like. This is every kid in my building gets a book like this on the first day of school. And then we'll dive into what's inside of this book afterwards. But I wanted you to have a visual as we go through it.
Awesome.
So
Now, Julie, I'm going to interrupt you this time. This is my turn to jump in here for a second. I have to admit that I did not have book creator as report card on my bingo card for 2 years ago when we first started having these discussions. So I'm really excited about this too. So, all right, I'm going to stop talking. I just had to say that this was not something I had heard of. I've heard a lot of ways to use book creator, but report card was not one of them. So this is super cool.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, John. It's been a really great partnership with Book Creator. We had evaluated a lot of different a lot of different software, a lot of different apps. We looked at Canva, Google Slides. We looked at so many different ways to accomplish what we had wanted to accomplish once we had read the literature and determined what our goals were for equity and access. Ultimately, it was almost a no-brainer for us. Book Creator had the capability to do things that I'm about to take you through that none of the other systems had the capability of doing, certainly not with teacher ease. And teacher ease, as you'll see when we get to number 1 on the list, teacher ease turns out to be a really important part of equity for our students. So the top 5 reasons why traditional report cards kind of stink. And just so you know, if you think that's a little spicy, there were some suggestions that my book creator friends made that had worse language than that for the top 5 list. And I decided that that was a little too naughty and provocative. So I went with why.
I don't know who you're talking about, Julie. Not at all.
Nobody knows, John. Nobody knows. But I went
Nope.
with kind of stink because I thought it was a little sweeter than that. So I
Yep.
apologize if
It
it's too
looks good.
provocative. So reason number 5 why traditional report cards kind of stink. Traditional report cards are one-way communication, right? It's essentially a teacher telling a parent what their child does really well and what their child is not doing really well with. It's a one-way communication. And if we think about the education system of yesteryear, right? Just 13 years ago, when I started here in Oceanside, hundreds of parents entered my building every day to walk children to classes, right? That back and forth dialogue with parents was omnipresent. It was all the time. So having a one-way report card probably didn't feel like such a huge void. But here we find ourselves in very different times culturally and societally in terms of safety and security and all the things. And the reality is there's a lot less of the back and forth conversation that really rounds out a parent's ability to understand their child as a learner, but also very importantly, a teacher's ability to understand a child outside of the classroom. So that back and forth communication is really a big void in a traditional report card, given the changes that we've seen in society in even just 10 years, never mind 50 years ago when maybe your mom was your teacher in a one-room schoolhouse or something like that, right? I mean, times have really changed. And now if we're going to look at 3 times a year of communication, there is a big question mark over why we're doing this one-way communication that has such a limited perspective. Reason number 4, why traditional report cards kind of stink. Okay, so our kids are not static. They're just not. We know this. They grow, they learn. When we have a marking period that ends on December 18th, if a kid hasn't mastered that skill and ends up mastering it on December 19th, our traditional report cards have no way of communicating that or celebrating it with the kid, with the parents, nothing. So with all the things that teachers are juggling on any given day, they're not calling 24 parents in their class every single day to say like, hey, I know you just got that report card yesterday and your child didn't really do that well in algebra, but he had his aha moment today and it all clicked. Just wanted to let you know. That would be a great thing for parents to know. That would be amazing for parents to know, for kids to feel good about themselves, for everyone to celebrate, for parents to stop harassing their kids, to work on the thing that they've already mastered, all the things. But that's not how a traditional report card works, right? We have marking periods. Parents see what their kids are doing well with and what they're not doing well with. And they don't get to see it again until the predetermined, somewhat arbitrary, it's not really arbitrary, but a predetermined, somewhat arbitrary date rolls around. So one of the things that we really wanted to be able to do in order to give power and to really give clout to the idea that kids are dynamic humans who are growing and changing all the time. And sometimes they're growing with 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Sometimes it's seemingly like a plateau and then they pop up with new learning. We wanted to have a report card that honored developmental readiness. When a child is ready to learn it and we've built the foundation and the background knowledge, it just happens, right? There's very few people who go through the American school system and end up illiterate. That's the reality of the situation. Some people may not learn how to read until 8th grade, like my Lucy. Others are going to learn in kindergarten, but we're all going to learn it at some point or another. By the time Lucy learned how to read in 8th grade with fluency and comprehension, there was no report card grade that was going to celebrate that. That was a long gone skill for her. So we really wanted a reporting system that was going to be able to honor the very dynamic, ever-growing aspect of our children.
Julie, I really like the fact that you mentioned the traditional report card too. I'm laughing because when I was in my former school district as a tech integrator, one of the things I was responsible for was printing the report cards, right? And so like it was crazy to me that we had to do this, all right, because the reporting system was all online, the grades were entered all the time, and I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, I print these things on a Tuesday, they go home on a Friday, and there's time in between there where these kids are actually doing other things and it's being put in there. So when that report card goes home and a kid has a D, like maybe that's not a D anymore because they did some makeup work or they did extra assignments or, they just got a better test grade on the next test. That happened after they were printed. So they were always outdated. And that was something that always frustrated me. And so I'm glad that you pointed that out.
Yeah. And for so many people, when you hear something like that, it almost sounds silly, like the 4 days, right? Like Tuesday to Friday, like there's 180 school days in the school year. Like, what's the 4 days, right? Give your best estimate to what grade the kid's going to get by Friday. But all the little things add up to make a big thing. So even something like attendance records, right? There are significant impacts of having very poor attendance in school, legally, in terms of the school's accountability, and in terms of the student learning, obviously. If you're not here for a big chunk of the school year, so when a teacher runs a report card for, the attendance records for a report card 4 to 6 days before the report card goes home, it's like one of these like weird little lags in time because we're really just memorializing a static moment in time. It's a fleeting moment in time out of the whole child's 365 days a year. We're saying like, we're going to put into pen, into like permanent ink, how your child is doing today at this minute in time. And that's going to be the thing that goes on the fridge and in the little album that mom creates, and it stays forever and ever and ever. But that doesn't represent who our kids are at all. They're
Yeah.
changing minute by minute, day by day. So
The
I'm
visual of
glad you
Han
brought that
Solo and
up.
carbonite just went through my head. So for all of you science Star Wars nerds out there, that was the thing that just went through my head. But anyway, all right. I'm sorry about that sidetrack. Top number 3, Julie? Like
Number 3. So number 3, our traditional report cards, sort of what we've alluded to before, but slightly different nuance here. They do not honor growth mindset. And with all of the neuroscience that we have right now, we know for certain that the growth mindset is probably one of the most critical things we can help to develop with our students. When they believe that failure is the beginning of the learning, when our kids believe that the hard things they're facing are like the moments that they're about to reach an aha moment, when they see all of this as like the moment in time where learning is about to happen, they get excited about all this stuff. They don't fear failure. They don't opt out of tests because they're anxious. They don't opt out of grade 3 through 8 tests and then have an anxiety attack when they go to take a mandatory Regents or an AP test at the high school. Growth mindset is such an important part of the life skills that we're going to develop. I'm going to even say something very provocative now, and I'm going to say, if we could teach every kid growth mindset and they don't learn to read or write at the early childhood level, they're going to be better off than if they learn how to read or write, but they're scared of failure and of trying. So, and I know I probably just upset a lot of apple carts out there because that is not the popular thing to say, but I work with a lot of kids, and kids who persevere will eventually learn to read and write. They'll learn their trigonometry, they'll find their passion, and they'll go for it. When kids don't learn how to persevere, and that's on us as educators and as parents, we have to teach kids that failure is actually a super exciting moment in time because we are going to learn more from our failure than we are from anything else. A traditional report card simply doesn't build growth mindset. We do have some grades that say like E for effort. Oh, I don't know. Like, I'm not really sure if anyone ever like, yeah, Randy.
I said, and what is that in comparison to? That's always one of my biggest, like an E or an S for satisfactory. Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like?
Right. What does that look like? What does that look like from the lens of the physical education teacher who sees 600 students, right? Like I see my kid trying really hard at phys ed, they're all the sports they're doing are ones they've chosen. They want to work hard at, their friends are on the teams. But maybe my kid's really terrible in school for other reasons. I don't know. I don't know what that means. What I know is that our badge pick crew really wanted a report card that didn't just memorialize a fleeting moment in time, but it actually gave kids reason to work hard. It gave them the excitement they needed. Like, oh my goodness, my brain is on fire. I am so failing right now, but I am about to blow this up. So one of the things that we incorporated into our badge book as we went through a few different iterations of it was not just the criteria and the mastery of badge books, but also this concept of neuron stamps. And we teach into the idea as young as 4 years old. We teach kids about the neuroscience of the brain and how when we work on something, we are creating neural pathways, and the redundancies in the neural pathways are going to give us access to information and thinking and problem solving that we would not have otherwise had if we just tried once and walked away from it. So as our kids are working towards selecting the badge that they want to earn and meeting the criteria within the badge, which I'll show you in just a second, all of the effort they put in and all the progress they make is celebrated with neuron stamps. And it's the kids who actually identify that they have earned a neuron stamp because they've worked really hard, and here's the evidence that I've worked really hard. So having something with growth mindset in it was really important, not just a grade for growth mindset. We didn't just want like a one-way communication from a teacher to a parent saying, your kid is really good at growth mindset. We wanted the actual report card to be a vehicle for growing growth mindset. So we're getting to it. We're getting to it. The number two reason why traditional report cards kind of stink. What you're looking at here is the tumbling of a silo. Now, before I go into my tirade about silos, I will just say I get that we have to teach in silos. Specifically, at the high school level, we want our content area teachers to be experts in content area, right? We need the silos at a certain place and time. But what we do as educators is we don't just bring our expertise to the table, right? We teach, we watch kids learn, we assess them, and then we report on the assessments. Those are four dramatically different things. And if the teaching has to be siloed because we need content specialists, which makes a whole lot of sense, certainly wouldn't want a science teacher teaching my child literature. But it doesn't mean that we have to do all of the instruction in silos or that the assessment or the reporting should be in silos. And what happens when everything is in silos is kids learn something like in second grade, place value is this thing that tells me number one means one sometimes and it means 10 other times. And it's all just sort of, either easy for one kid or really weird and challenging for another kid. If kids understood how valuable place value is, like in the bigger picture of things, right? Like place value is really important in language arts. The idea that where something goes changes the meaning, right? In the sentence structure, syntax, grammar. If we say that is a dog versus is that a dog, changing the place actually changes the value of the sentence. Also in science, chemistry, right? If we mix chemicals out of order, we could end up having an explosion, right? Like the order in which we do things matters. In social studies, the order in which you were born or where you were born dictates your class, your everything, right? Place value is not just math. It's the world we live in. It's pretty cool stuff. And if we learned how to teach without all these silos, we could each bring our own area of expertise, but we can make learning integrated and we could actually engage the minds of kids in a whole new way. So one of the things that we wanted to do over time, and this took us a few years to do, was in developing this badge system and really diving into the standards. That was the first work that we did long before we could even start exploring technology. We really wanted to find the places where the standards made so much sense to integrate so that we can teach from our perspective of expertise. We could even have lessons in math or lessons in science that don't necessarily integrate, but the assessment, and when kids show us the evidence that they've learned something, they should be able to show us evidence that they learned place value in math, in science, in social studies, in language arts. They should just understand the concept of place value or the concept of cause and effect, whatever it is that they need to show us. So the silos piece is a big one. And then the number one.
Julie, before you get to number one, because I don't know if there's anybody else like this, I'm not sure I can even handle number one because my brain looked like that silo on the last page when you were talking about connecting place value with sentence structure. Like that just absolutely wrecked my brain. So anyway, continue on with number one at your own caution, everybody, because there might be more mind melts to come. So anyway, Julie, back at it.
Thank you, John. I appreciate that. I don't think this one is going to break your brain. I think this one is going to feel really important to you as someone who's passionate about all this good stuff and also someone who is a parent. The number one reason why traditional report cards kind of stink and why we look to be somewhat progressive in developing our badge books with Book Creator is that there is an element to traditional report cards that really leaves something to be desired when it comes to empowerment. A report card, like we said before, it tells a parent what their child is doing well at or not well at, but it doesn't really tell a parent what to do next. It doesn't really tell a student what to do next. And if I'm completely honest, when I was using traditional report cards in my school system, I had more teachers who felt insecure about certain things. Like, what does this mean? What does this grade? What does this standard even mean? How do I grade it? What assessment is it connected to? Can we have a rubric so we're all on the same page? I don't want to grade it differently than the teacher next door. Teachers were so anxious about it. What we really wanted to do was create something that was going to be so clear, the definition so clear, the manageability of it was going to be so equal for all teachers that we literally would remove the accident of geography. There would never be a teacher who could do this work better than another teacher because they were all going to do it exactly the same way, which meant every kid could get the same standards taught in class, the same assessments, and the same reporting system. Removing the accident of geography was so important to us. That's the number one.
I am so glad, Julie, that you brought that up, because one of the things that, just from my own experience as a teacher and then again as an administrator, is there are so many times where the teachers are like, I don't know if I'm grading this right, and so that having to take either the extra time to then, like, all 4 of my second grade teachers are going to get together and they're switching each other's papers to make sure they're grading, using the rubric the same. Or on the opposite effect, where usually, and I don't want to be biased here, but normally this happens more at like the secondary level where you only see the students for 43 minutes. It's like the grading is completely off, where a student might be getting, an F in science and an A in literacy, and like there's no rhyme or reason as to why. And so that grading bias is so huge, whether it's implicit or explicit. And
Yeah.
so the fact that you took that completely out of the equation is phenomenal. And I think a lot of districts will be just right now just so eager to see, like, how did you do this? And remember, everyone listening, this is 4 and 5-year-olds. This is not, students that have had all this experience in school. We are starting from the very beginning. And I'm a huge believer that if kindergartners can do it, anyone can do it. And so I'm so excited.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, just piggybacking on what you just said, this book here, this Grading for Equity, these 2 books are really like, these are my Bibles. I read them, I thumb through them, all the time. I travel with them. But Grading for Equity was, there were a lot of big aha moments for my faculty as we shared a book read for that. And when we started talking about teacher manageability, it almost sounded like we wanted to cut corners and make it easy for teachers. I have the most type A staff you could ever imagine. If I told them to cut a corner, they would probably stay till midnight and never go home. They are so not corner cutters, but teacher manageability, when we take the complicated layers out of something and we bring it down to its rawest form, it actually increases the rigor. It doesn't decrease the rigor. It gives every teacher access. So they're investing their energy in what they should be investing their energy in, which is planning great instruction and implementing it. So yeah, the teacher manageability, we talk about it and we always like caution ourselves not to let anyone think that what we're talking about is corner cutting and making it easy for teachers. What we're trying to do is reduce the accident of geography, give the common definition so everyone can have the same idea of what we're doing. So just a really quick overview. Book Creator has been amazing. A few years ago, when we decided to go in the direction of Book Creator, we said to them, like, as a principal, when I go to review report cards, I can't open up 600 books. You got to help me have libraries or some way of doing this easier. So this is what a teacher gets. What you're looking at right now is the view that a teacher gets in the beginning of the school year. She's got 1 book for every child in her class. Within that book, the book is sectioned off. We have chosen to go in trimesters. So you see here, we have 3 colors denoting the 3 different trimesters. We made our colors meaningful so that we would remember what they are. Yellow is like, yay, sunshine. We're so excited about the school year. Green is like, oh, nice and calm. We're like in a groove in the middle of the school year. And blue is like, oh, we're so sad and blue that you're leaving us. So those are our colors that we've chosen, but it's sort of irrelevant. This is an overview page that sort of shows you all the different badges that kids can earn over the course of the year. And you can see just by looking at it that there's some overlap. Some of our badges run 3 different times during the year. Some of our badges run once during the year. Basically, the colors are when we provide whole class grade level instruction. Some kids are going to be exposed to those yellow skills in the beginning of the school year, and they're not going to master them until June. But I'll show you how we go in and indicate that there's that developmental readiness, and that timeline that we talked about before is built into this system. So I'm flipping through a book creator now. If you're not familiar with book creator, this is sort of the format that of what it looks like. So our teachers flip through these books, and on the yellow page, the fall skills, which match their scope and sequence and their pacing guides. These are the skills that they're going to teach. Within each of these skills, we have hyperlinked to badges, and the badges are exactly what they sound like from the concept of Girl Scout badges, Boy Scout badges. If a Girl Scout wants to earn her camping badge, she has to learn what the criteria for a camping badge is. She learns she has to camp, survive a night, have an adult with her, do all the things. She makes the plans. She goes and does all the things, and then she gets her badge. That's exactly what we've done with the standards. So I'm going to dive into 2 different standards just to give you a sense of, some of the standards we've sort of siloed purposefully, and some we've sort of integrated. And I want to show you what the 2 different things look like. So if we go into the alphabet, this is a kindergarten badge. It's essentially, what we're looking at here is a badge that has 2 criteria. In order for a child to earn that badge, they have to get both criteria. I can recognize and name 28 uppercase letters, and I can recognize and name, I'm sorry, 26. That was embarrassing. 26 lowercase letters. Simple, black and white criteria. We purposely made some very simple ones in the beginning of the school year because we wanted kids to start earning fast. It was part of our goal for growth mindset. We needed them to buy into the system in order to start earning it. So some of our kids at the end of that first trimester, as we're approaching the end of the first trimester, they're getting close, but they haven't yet mastered their X, Y, and Z, some of those last letters to be mastered. If a child is only missing X, Y, and Z, and they know they're about to earn this badge by the end of the trimester, they have so much incentive to go learn X, Y, and Z. And then we have all of the free educational resources right here at their fingertips. This is one of the beautiful things about Book Creator, is all of the links and all the layers that we're able to build into this. Let me take you back now. D, how do I get it back to?
There's a tab on the top.
Julie, I also have to say that I really appreciate the extra resources. So when you click on it, it takes you there. My son, my daughter, when they come home with homework, and my daughter's like, "Hey, can you help me with this math?" And I'm looking at that and I'm like, "You're in 4th grade. Like, I don't remember doing that stuff until I was in 8th grade, right?" Or like, why are you doing a division problem like that? Like, what the heck is that? Like, I've never said, why would you do that in a division problem, right? Like, that was the fight we had the other day, and she's like, my teacher told me to. I was like, that's fine, but like, why? So like, having those resources there, I think, is very powerful, because then as a parent, I can be like, I have no idea what you are doing. And I can go watch a video that says, this is why your daughter is doing what she is doing, right, with this math problem, or whatever the case may be. So I think it's very powerful.
Exactly. And the capabilities, like Randy said, the reason to sort of showcase this in kindergarten is because it's really hard to imagine 4 and 5-year-olds picking goals and working towards goals. So showcasing it here is pretty important, but it's fairly easy to imagine what this could look like at the upper grades if a school or a district wanted to take this work on. My daughter in math is using Delta Math, so having some of the Delta Math resources linked in would be great for her. Also, some YouTube videos like how to do this, things that she could watch. And imagine as a parent the power of like a long extended car trip, right? We just finished our December vacation. Here in New York, we get something called a February vacation. Don't hate us for it, all you people who don't get it. But the truth is, a lot of us drive to Florida. It's a 22-hour car ride with kids in the back. And nowadays, what that looks like is this, right? That's what it looks like. What if this could be a little bit of the Pokemon, but it could also be a little bit of, the negotiation between a parent and child? Like, if you want to play for an hour, you also have to find a badge you want to work on for an hour. And it's all right there, all of it right there at the kids' fingertips and the parents' fingertips. So we really wanted this to be about parent empowerment as well as all the other things we talked about. Just
Now,
quickly.
Julie, real quick, I'm sorry too. We had a question. Yes, there will be a recording. So everybody, there will be a recording of this, so you can go back and watch it. But the other question was, will we have a copy of this badge book, like a blank one that we could specifically have and kind of play around with? And I think the answer is yes, but I wanted you to answer that too.
Yes, yes. So we were lucky enough to have, like I said before, Mineola School District open their doors to us. They handed everything over to us that really got us up and running. They created a beautiful version of this in paper, hard copy. We then took it to the digital world with our partnership with Book Creator. The reality is we are so proud of the work that went into this in Oceanside, and Oceanside is really just looking to create great educational opportunities for kids anywhere possible. We're like every other school district. We are a non-for-profit. We're not looking for money. We just want to share and grow with other districts. So one of my hopes, and by the end of all of this, I'll share some contact information with you all. One of my hopes is that whether you take this and just sort of steal it and run with it, great. Or if you take it and you use it for inspiration and you create the next best thing, I hope you share it back with us so that, just really across the globe, this is not even the United States, right? Like this is like across the globe. Let's just keep working in partnership to do better for our kids and our teachers. So yeah, free copy coming out. Okay, so here's one. We could dive into any of these here. I'll take you into reading workshop. This is a reading workshop badge where our kids are able to, slow computer. Super slow computer. All right, it's been doing that all day, so we're just gonna move on. Are you able to see the yellow screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to move on. We'll get into the good stuff in just a minute. Here's the winter trimester, so to speak. Oh, I see that we're starting to get some late afternoon Wi-Fi issues here. Not fun. Okay. So we're going to roll with the punches because that's what educators do. Isn't it always the case for those of you who are principals, you go into that poor teacher's classroom for her observation and all of a sudden her smartboard goes down and she's
Julie,
more
I can
miserable than
present.
you are?
It seems to be running on my screen. So if you want me to present, I can try and open it up, and then that way you can just kind of talk through it.
That would be great because I am seeing my Wi-Fi thing start to glitch right now. So should I stop sharing, John?
Here, I just booted you out, I think. And everybody, Randy, do you see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, so I'm back to the yellow page here, Julie. So
Okay.
let me go to, I can't handle side-by-side pages because apparently my brain doesn't work that way. So there we go. So we're on a single page. So you were going to click on reading workshop. So I just clicked on reading workshop.
Perfect. So you can see here, this badge is a lot more robust than the other one. One of the things I want to orient you to is on the bottom right-hand corner. It's pretty small on the screen, but when you get a copy of this, you'll be able to see it. This is where we list all of the standards from New York State. And this is where you can actually see the integration of social emotional learning standards, ELA standards in both literacy, language, and writing. And where you have things like the integration of math and science, it is all listed here by standard. So this was, in terms of teacher empowerment, this was one of the most powerful parts of the process for us, learning how to dive into the standards, find that integration, and then link it back to the standards document that's available to us through our New York State educational website. We also have the yellow, green, and blue criteria, so you can see the progression of skills that we anticipate children will learn over time based on our instruction. We do have a number of children right now in the school year, a huge number of children who are going to be earning a blue badge at this time of the school year because we are trying a couple of new things. Randy, you'll be super excited. I'll fill you in later. With phonemic awareness and phonics this year. And it's really accelerating the learning. It's so developmentally appropriate and fun for our kids. And yet they are learning faster than they ever have before with certain skills. So we are about to launch that green middle of the year sort of trimester with kids earning blue badges, which is kind of fun. And we will also have plenty of kids who all the way at the end of the year in June are going to earn some of their yellow badges for the very first time. So moving on to the next slide. Perfect.
Ooh, sorry, went too fast.
Yeah. Okay. So if we were doing a side-by-side view, and John, I don't like those either. My brain doesn't work that way either. But if we were doing that, we would see that next to each of the trimester badges, we also have a blank page. The blank page is a place where we can write anything we want to write. So we can indicate to parents like what goals to work on. Let's say there's a child who really is a struggling learner, maybe just moved to this country, is not ready to do all of the cognitive work because they're just sort of settling into their new life right now, right? So they're not going to earn a lot of badges at all at the time when parents are going to see it. They're going to earn some of the old ones, and later on, they're going to earn plenty of them, but right now they're not going to earn them. But how's a parent supposed to look at 20 badges and know what to do with their child, right? So we have determined that what we want to do there is highlight exactly which pieces of learning are in the child's zone of proximal development so that the parent can just dive right into what is most important. So we do list that. And what we're really excited about, which we haven't launched yet, but it's coming, is Book Creator gives you the ability to do the greatest portfolioing ever. So the idea that a kid can come up to the teacher and say, I think I've earned this badge. I have evidence that I am writing and meeting all the criteria in the badge. Here it is. The teacher could say, go take a picture of it with your Chromebook, upload it into the page as your evidence. And when you have your evidence logged, come on back to me. So we could actually not only portfolio kids, but we could empower them to portfolio themselves, proving that they've met the standards of the state and of our report card. So we're just about to launch that piece, the portfolioing piece, which of course anyone in the field of education knows is a huge cultural shift for teachers. So it's been a slow process and we've massaged our way through it, but we're getting there now. So we're pretty pumped about that piece of it.
So
I'm excited too. I can't wait to see it.
I know that we are in the read mode, and I know that in order to like put a badge on, so they, I know that that's a big also like empowering piece. So I didn't know if you wanted to just speak to that, like what that looks like from the student, end of it, of like what happens when they're ready to earn a badge.
So John, if you flip through a couple of pages, I'm going to show you a page that a teacher and a student would see, which actually shows, oh, we have to go out of the read mode Can you go to the edit mode?
Oh, I don't have edit mode for your specific book. If you made this book remixable, I could do it.
And that is a vocabulary word that I don't yet have.
When you go to the publish button, so if this is the library, if you go to share and publish it, one of the options is to turn on remixing. And if you remix that book, at least even just for the time being, then I can copy it into my own library and I can go in to read mode.
Okay, so go back to my library,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And then go to the actual book, and underneath the book, you're going to hit the share button and publish, and then change it to remixing on. Now, for everybody that's here with us, I still see we have a lot of people still with us, which is great. We are a little bit over our time, which, if you've ever been on a webinar with Randy and I, is not unusual because we like to talk about stuff. So if you do have to go, we certainly understand. You're not going to offend us if you have to leave right away. But we will have this recording on our YouTube channel, and either later today or tomorrow. And when we do have the book remixable so that you can copy it into your own library, we will also put that into the notes under the YouTube video. All right. So you will be able to have all of this information soon. All right. If not, but thanks for listening to us. Thank you. We do appreciate that. At least we've got some. So that's good. But yes, in the edit mode, I don't know, Julie, if you got it to be remixed yet.
We're getting that up and going right now.
All
And
right, sounds good.
I can describe what you're about to see. Essentially, when a teacher opens one of these pages, on the outskirts of what would be visible in the published version, we have a number of stars and a number of neuron stamps. So when the child earns their badge, they essentially tap and drag the star over the badge, and we fill in the month that it was earned. So we can start to memorialize the timeline of acquisition. If a child hasn't yet earned their badge, but they are able to provide evidence that they're working really hard or making progress towards the criteria within the badge, they can grab that neuron stamp and drag it over. And the way that
And
we do that
I'll
is
do a quick demo of a very poorly
that
done demo of what that might look like. All right. So, because I've seen the insides of these books, so I do know what they kind of look like. So over here on the side, I've got a star, right? And then I also have a neuron. And so if like Julie said, a child is successful at one of the criteria, then you just simply click one of the stars, because there would be many, and drag it over top of the R here, because that's when I've completed it, right? And then I can add the date, right on top of the star, or I think there's a line underneath where you can write it down when it was completed, and then you just do that, right? And the same thing with a neuron. So if you're working on it and it's in progress and you're not quite there yet, that's because you're still building that stuff. That's all good. You drag the little neuron over there on top. So that's kind of how it works. And so when you are able to remix this book and you're able to bring it in, not only do you get what's actually on the page, you also get all of the goody stuff that's in the gray space in the margins. So you're not going to have to reinvent the wheel, or the star in this case, or reinvent the neuron. They will all be there, and all you have to do is drag and drop them. All right.
we are remixed.
All right. Awesome. So let me refresh this. And I may not even have the right link to the book. I have a book that you sent me earlier today, but it does not look like this one is remixable yet. So how is your Wi-Fi, Julie? Are you able to,
No,
it's not there yet. Can you email me the published link to the book that you just did?
I'm doing that right
It
now.
will get it going here, but
I think one of the most important things too, again, like obviously one of the goals for this was simplicity, because you wanted to make sure that the students understood it, the teachers understood it, and the parents understood it. So you're bringing in those all stakeholders having the same vocabulary, the same understanding. Do you do any sort of training, Julie, for parents, like at the start, like your open house or something? How are parents aware of like, this is what to look for?
Great question. So the first year that we rolled this out, we put together a informative video orienting the parents to, and then you're going to see this, and then you'll see this. And we actually used Book Creator and then Screencastify. We did a lot of app smashing to create this little video that we shared with parents about a week before they were going to see the badge books for the first time. Since then, our community has adjusted a little bit to this in our school. And so what we do now is we introduce it to parents at back to school night. We create a couple of slides about a month into the school year. Here we have something called back to school night. Maybe in some other states or countries, it's called like orientation, parent orientation night, something like that. Essentially, the parents come in without the children and they listen to the teacher talk for a portion of time. We create a couple of slides that all of our teachers can use so that they're all sort of hitting the same concepts. And then when we do our first round of parent-teacher conferences, every child's badge book is up on the big smart board, and the teachers are doing the parent-teacher conference through the lens of the book creator so that we are able to showcase any of the different things that children have identified as their goals, as evidence for their goals, all those other things.
Wonderful.
Right, excellent. And we're up and running. We've got neurons and translucent stars all over the page here, Julie.
There you go. So that is exactly what a teacher and a student see. Most of the times it's happening on small one-to-one devices or the teacher's device. Every now and then, if a teacher teaches a lesson and really knocks it out of the park and all of the kids master a certain badge at the same time, maybe like a engineering badge or a STEAM badge, she might do this on the big smart board so the kids get to celebrate as a class. But this is the scene that the kids see. The one I was showing you before is essentially what the parents see without all the excess stars and neuron stamps.
Excellent.
And I love that the stars are color coded. So then that way too, you can see that if a student is getting a blue star already in their badge book in the first trimester, this is, it's amazing. It's motivating. And I love that you put like the goal isn't that you get all the yellow stars in the first. I mean, yes, that's like the goal, but it's okay if they don't, because there's going to be other things that they're working on. They might have mastered their alphabet badge right away, and now they're working at green in some things while they're still working on some of their yellows. And I think that is just, it's so powerful for students and for student learning.
Yeah. And Randy, having come from like a K-2 school, you know how important that vertical articulation is. So, a first grade teacher might get two kids in her class, both reading at a level D, one who started kindergarten at a level C, and one who started kindergarten without a lick of English at a pre-A. Seeing that progression of how quickly they acquire skills says a lot, right? If all we do is assess our kids the first day they come into first grade, we're going to know that these two kids are both level D. We're going to put them in a group together. We're going to instruct them together. Bada bing, bada bang, bada boop. It's all perfect. It's not perfect. One kid is going to accelerate really quickly, and we're going to need to work really hard to throw all the stuff at them that they could possibly absorb because they can't absorb it fast enough. And another kid has not made a ton of progress at all with the best of instruction and is going to need a lot of modifications and accommodations. So giving that timeline piece to the next grade is also empowering the next grade to understand who their learners are and hit the ground running from day one.
Exactly. And I know we are really out of time. I mean, 2 minutes, but I do want to say, Julie, I know that we've talked about continuing the conversation in a month or so. And I really feel strongly because we haven't even gotten into the fact that the rest of the schools in your district do not use this. So after kindergarten, they go to first grade at a different school, they're not using badge books. And so what does that look like? How that process is. So don't be afraid if you're, at a district and you might be the only ones, because that's Julie. And so I really want to continue this conversation. We will get this resource out to you. Julie, I am so excited that you were able to share this today. I feel like a lot of people are going to be reviewing this on YouTube and watching the video and getting more and more ideas. Also, I know, I'm sorry if I'm taking your thunder, but Julie will also be at FETC if any of you are going to be at FETC in Florida. And she will be talking more about this in person live at the Book Creator booth. So excited.
I'm so excited to work with you guys and to share with anyone who's interested in hearing about this work. And I hope that some of you folks out there listening, if you do find yourselves inspired to do something like this in your schools, stay in touch. Let's work and grow together.
Awesome. And yes, and again, we will get this out on our YouTube channel soon, either tonight or later tomorrow. And we will also make sure that we get the remixable link for the badge book, the whole badge book, not just our presentation book, but the whole badge book will be linked in that YouTube description. So please be on the lookout for that. But I just can't say thank you enough, Julie and Randy, both, for joining me here today and talking about this. I think it's amazing. I think there's endless possibilities and potential with this. So it is very cool. And a lot of the comments that I've already seen in the chat window are just like, wow, like, cool, this is amazing. So yes, it's going to be the same at FETC and everybody else that sees this webinar. So thank you, everybody, so much for being here. We appreciate it. Julie, Randy, be safe out there. Everybody, happy bookmaking.
Much, Julie.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. See you, everybody.